Today we're going to talk about a short demo for the game Nimat, overanalyzing the little snippets of lore we got so far. If you don't know it yet, Nimat is a fear and hunger inspired survival horror RPG taking place in ancient Egypt. While it takes some things straight out of Fear and Hunger, like the limb targeting turn-based combat, in other aspects it goes in much different directions for better or worse, and it does so a lot more than other Fear and Hunger inspired games I know. Now I am going to spoil everything about this demo, so if you want to play it for yourself, you should come back to the video when you're done. It's very short and will probably take you less time than the length of this video. The game takes place at a very specific age in the times of ancient Egypt, where a pharaoh named Akhetaten ruled and made dramatic religious changes. The historical Akhetaten took an already existing deity named Aten from the polytheistic pantheon of ancient Egypt, who used to be an aspect of the sun god, and placed him at the center of a new religion called Atenism that believed that he is the god placed above all other gods. With Akhetaten being his only prophet and the only one that can speak in his name, taking away power from the priests of the other gods in the pantheon. The name Aten is translated to sun disk or disk, and in contrast to the other gods of the pantheon who have a humanoid figure, Aten in Atenism was represented as a sun disk with outstretched rays that have hands at the end of them. Perhaps this was a representation of how Aten touches everything under the sun, making him seem more omnipresent, all-encompassing than the previous humanoid-looking gods. Some of the hands are also holding an ankh, which is a hieroglyphic symbol representing life, and is often drawn in a physical form in carvings held by life-giving entities, with Aten being a representation of the life-giving aspect of the sun, like for example how its light is crucial to the growth of the crops that feed the Egyptian people. Although when it comes to the version of Aten in the game, as we'll see shortly, him being presented as a god of sustaining life is going to become very ironic. Akhetaten went as far as removing the names of certain gods from all statues, temples, and so on, and restricting their worship. This erasure campaign was especially focused on one specific god named Amun. Amun had humble origins, but by the time of Akhetaten, he was one of the most important gods in the pantheon for generations, with him being considered the king of the gods. So pharaohs of Akhenaten's dynasty would reference him in their names, including Akhetaten, as his original name was Amenhotep IV, which translates to Amun is satisfied. He replaced Amun with Aten in his new name, which means beneficial to Aten. And he didn't stop at his own name either, as he ordered the name of Amun to be chiseled out of statues and monuments of pharaohs who had the name of the god as part of their name, including statues of his own father, Amenhotep III, who was not only beloved by Akhenaten himself, but was very well respected and loved in Egypt in general. He was even dubbed Amenhotep the Great, and the time of his rule was very prosperous. Even though some gods were spared this treatment, and perhaps were even allowed to be worshipped alongside Aten in some ways, some historians believe that Atenism eventually became monotheistic, or at least something very close to it. reclassifying the other gods of the Egyptian pantheon as less than gods, with only Aten deserving of the title, which would make it one of the first monotheistic religions in history, although it was more likely a form of henotheism, where other gods are still believed to exist, but are deemed lesser deities than the one supreme deity the religion is focused on. However, the version of Aten in the game called the Disk is leaning more towards monotheism, with him having similarities to the god most of us would think of when we think about monotheism, being the god of the three Abrahamic religions. And this game connects the two in much more direct ways, as we'll see a bit later. But I do believe Atenism in this game is meant to represent the kind of religious oppression that historically and still today in some places came with belief in these monotheistic religions, as the god is fundamentally intolerant to belief in other deities. In a lot of cases, believers of these religions even oppressed people who believed in the same God, but just believed in him in the quote-unquote wrong way. Although in a lot of cases, monotheists tended to be more tolerant towards other monotheists of other sects and religions, at least when compared to how they treated polytheists. After all, in Egypt in real life, even though Atenism crumbled, monotheism won over Egypt in the long run. The switch to Christianity was a lot more gradual than what Akhetaten tried to do with Atenism. Long after the time of Akhetaten, when Egypt was not as strong as it used to be, it was conquered by the Roman Empire. Later on, when the Romans adopted Christianity, the religion started to spread even to the furthest reaches of the empire, including Egypt. In the beginning, their conversion to Christianity was a lot slower and more natural, but later on, some emperors strictly enforced the belief in Christianity. The gods of the old pantheon were literally demonized, reclassified as less than gods, perhaps in a similar way to what Akhetaten tried to do more than 1,000 years before, but this time it was a lot more successful. The religion of the old gods was seen as a pagan cult by the Christians, and its believers were considered to be sinful idolaters, praying to statues of false gods. Through a process that took centuries, the belief in the old gods was systematically and often violently destroyed. At the end, Emperor Justinian I purged the last remnants of the religion of ancient Egypt. Non-Christians were heavily restricted, and the army was sent to take over and close the last temples to the old gods, with the very last temple being a temple to the goddess Isis. The prominent figures remaining representing the religion of old were imprisoned and exiled, and not soon after the religion went completely extinct. Today, Egypt is a Muslim majority country, and the religion of old Egypt is nothing but ancient history. But enough with the history lesson, let's go back to the game. The game starts with this beautiful dynamic camera shot, moving from the scene of the main menu to the start of the game. This game is going to have more of these dynamic shots, as unlike other Fear and Hunger inspired games and Fear and Hunger itself, it is not made in RPG Maker, but the Godot engine, allowing it to have a lot of interesting things that are just impossible in RPG Maker. We begin in this calm before the storm kind of section, playing as the titular Nimat, speaking to her husband named Husband. Yeah, being a family member of a horror game protagonist is already being in the danger zone, and this guy not even getting a name is a massive death flag. I don't think he's going to survive for long. Our son does get a name though, which means there is hope for him yet. His name is Lammus, containing within it the name Amus, which could be translated to Son of the Moon. Very fitting as we play an opposing force to a sun god. We need to go to the market to buy some things, leaving our son behind with our doomed husband, but we are not going to do that just yet. Walking around, we find the corpse of a dead ox in the field being eaten by a vulture, which leads Nimat to explain the circle of life to her son. How when something dies, what remains of it sustains the life of others. Lammus says that he wouldn't like to die, with Nimat responding that no one does, but he doesn't have to think about such things as he's too young to worry about death yet. As someone with a perspective from beyond the fourth wall, I beg to differ. The kid is going to die as well, isn't he? Well, maybe I'm just being alarmist, we'll see. If you go to the ox as Nimat alone, the dialogue is different, with her thinking that it is the third ox to die this week, and that animals die without any good explanation, with vultures coming to the corpses even before they start to smell. I'm going to get back to this later, so keep this in mind. Moving on, we meet a priest of Aten that tells us that the disc sees all and that the new era will require not only faith but obedience. Which feels like surveillance state, but instead of using technology, it uses supernatural means to always monitor its civilians. Let's take a break for a moment. If you're new around here and you like what you saw so far, consider sticking around by subscribing. And whether you're an old viewer or a new one, I would like your opinion about something. Usually in my videos, I narrate in a more exaggerated manner that seems to be divisive, with some people liking it and others saying it is unbearable to listen to. A part of it is my weird accent, which is what it is for better or worse, but in this video I try to speak in a less exaggerated manner, and I would very much appreciate your feedback to know if this narration style is better or if you prefer the old one. Also, I very stupidly almost finished recording a very long video in this style, so the next video is probably going to be in this style as well regardless, but I'll consider your feedback for the videos after that. So, let's go back to Nimat. We can also find this obelisk with a decree from the pharaoh to the people of Memphis saying that all able-handed men are obligated to build a new city, ending with an ominous threat that those who disobey will be judged by the one true god Aten. This actually references a true event where the historical Akhetaten decided to relocate the capital of Egypt from Memphis to a new city he was building from the ground up. While Memphis was dedicated to the god Ptah and had statues and temples to many of the other gods of the pantheon, the new city of Akhetaten, meaning horizon of Aten, was almost entirely dedicated to the worship of the sun disk, with open roof temples letting you pray directly to the sun. The version of the city in the game seems a lot more sinister than the historical one. We can later on find a crying woman that will tell us her children were taken to the new city and she just hopes they get back with their hands still whole. Whatever is going on there, it's pretty vile and we're probably gonna get to see it ourselves in the full game. Moving ahead a bit, Nimat is crossing the Nile to get to the market. When speaking to the ferryman, Nimat mentions that it is unusually hot, and the ferryman says that it feels like the sun is angry, and that with the new rules, everything is going to change. This angry sun foreshadowing the doom to come. this scorching angry sun and the bloodshed to come actually reminds me of a different sun goddess, which is a daughter of Ra named Sekhmet, who represents a more vengeful, violent aspect of the sun god. In the Book of the Heavenly Cow, humanity plots against the god Ra, and in response he sends Sekhmet to bring bloody divine vengeance upon humanity. But Sekhmet was too bloodthirsty, literally and figuratively, to stop at only killing some of the humans, with Ra worried that she is going to hunt humanity to extinction. So Ra gathered thousands of jars of beer and dyed them blood red. Then he poured the beer onto a field that Sekhmet was heading towards, and when she got there she thought it was a lake of blood and started drinking all of it, which resulted in her being too drunk to continue her slaughter. So according to Egyptian mythology, beer saved humanity from extinction. So next time you're having a mug of beer, you should raise a toast to beer itself for being the savior of humanity. Akhenaten's father had a lot of respect to Sekhmet. He raised 730 statues to her, one for every day of the year and one for every night. And he offered her regular tributes, and as a part of these tributes, he also offered her tons of beer. Perhaps he was trying to keep her drunk enough, so there isn't any chance she'll go back to slaughtering humanity. In any case, Amenhotep III had a lot of respect to all of the aspects of the sun god, including Sekhmet and Aten, which perhaps contributed to Akhenaten's obsession with Aten. And perhaps in his own new religion, he absorbed into Aten attributes that were originally of other aspects of the sun god like Sekhmet. And as we'll see in the bloodbath to come in the second part of the game, the Aten in the game definitely takes attributes from the bloodthirsty sun goddess, but we'll see it in the next video. I'll be honest, this video completely got out of my control. I was planning on making a short and focused review of this demo and fell into a rabbit hole of reading about ancient Egypt and Egyptian mythology, and all of a sudden I had lots more to say about the lore alone. And the video became longer than it would take you to actually finish the demo yourself. So for my sanity, I split this video in two. I will do my best to make the next part quickly. Maybe I'll cut some corners when it comes to editing. But we'll see, I don't have a great track record when it comes to making videos quickly. I am also working on a much bigger video on another demo of another promising Fear and Hunger inspired game that also takes place in Africa. In any case, thank you very much for watching this video until the end. And if you feel like it, I would very much appreciate it if you tell me if the new narration is better than the last in the comments below. And until next time, thank you for stopping by the junkyard.